Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, The Medieval Reader. So today I want to talk about a short story that I just finished reading by Voltaire, the 18th century Enlightenment philosopher, man of letters, man of actual letters. He wrote thousands of letters to people. In addition to writing plays, novels, he was a literary critic and a philosopher. His most famous work is Candide. And Candide has never really been a story that I really liked. It's mostly the misogyny that has rubbed me in the wrong way. But this story that I'm going to talk about today, I absolutely loved. It's called Micromégas. I will link an English translation of it down below so that you can read it. It should only take you like 15-20 minutes. It's a pretty fast read and incredibly enjoyable. Micromégas was first published in 1752, and it is seen as one of the earliest works of science fiction. But even if you're not really a science fiction fan, but you're more of a philosophy fan, you will really like this story. And if you don't like science fiction or philosophy, you'll still like it because it's pretty fun. It's very funny, but also thought-provoking. This is definitely one of Voltaire's more sober satires. So in Micromégas, we have a giant. His name is Micromégas. But on his planet, or on the star that he lives on the star Sirius, in the cosmos, Sirius. And he's gigantic, and his planet is gigantic, and even the insects are gigantic. He wrote a book about the insects. And then the Mufti, which is basically the Inquisition on this planet, condemns his book, and it takes over 200 years for his trial to be completed. But he's so many hundred years old. So everything is just incredibly massive. All the creatures live for hundreds of years. Everything is just very exaggerated. Micromégas, as you can see, is quite an explorer. He likes to he likes to learn about his planet. But he's tired of his planet. He really wants to leave, especially after being condemned for heresy. And so he decides to go exploring other planets, and he visits Saturn. And on Saturn, which is a smaller planet than Sirius, but still incredibly massive from a human perspective, there is a Saturnian who is often referred to as a dwarf in this story because he is small in comparison to Micromégas. And both of them compare their lands to each other. They talk about their own experiences. They're trying to understand what human nature is. And while they're debating about this and traveling together, they end up on Earth. And this is where everything happens. Micromégas is wearing a necklace with diamonds, and the diamonds are massive. And at first, it seems like the Earth is completely bare. Because, you have these gigantic creatures who, from their perspective, can't see the humans or any of the animals on the planet. But Micromégas turns one of the diamonds on his necklace into a makeshift microscope to see what kind of creatures are living on the planet. And Saturn takes one of these diamonds and discovers a whale, and he thinks then the entire planet is populated with whales. But actually, they find some humans, and they just cannot believe that there are creatures that tiny on the planet. And they have a lot of wisdom. They're actually philosophers that were in a boat. And when these creatures are grabbed by the giants, they're so astounded, they're so horrified, they're so terrified. They don't know what's happening, and then they start conversing about philosophy. And that's really the heart of the satire, is in the last page, which I'm not going to spoil for you. But clearly this story was influenced by Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Gulliver's Travels is a story I have grown up with. It is a story I've read many times. It is one of my favorite books of all time. It is my favorite satire that I've ever read. Micromégas, though, is really sophisticated in that it tries to explore maybe more explicitly than Swift questions concerning human nature and human size with respect to the cosmos, significance of humans in the universe. All of these questions, Voltaire really has an interesting perspective on through his character Micromégas. This story is also inspired by a philosopher, Pascal, who Voltaire did not like. He thought that Pascal was quite a fanatic, that he wasn't really that great of a scientist, which is strange. I mean, he was actually quite a genius. But Voltaire did not like how fanatical Pascal's religious views were. Be that as it may, Micromégas makes a lot of references to a certain pensée in Pascal's Pensées, which are a collection of thoughts concerning everything from God to the universe to the soul to truth, number of topics. So I want to read you a little bit of it because it really gives an interesting perspective to the story. So this is Pensée number 72. It's in section 2. I will not read you the entire thing. However, I will link the entire Pensée down below so you can read it in its entirety. What is a man in the infinite? But to show him another prodigy equally astonishing, let him examine the most delicate things he knows. Let a might be given him, with its minute body and parts incomparably more minute, limbs with their joints, veins in the limbs, blood in the veins, humours in the blood, drops in the humours, vapours in the drops. Dividing these last things again, let him exhaust his powers of conception, and let the last object at which he can arrive be now that of our discourse. Perhaps he will think that here is the smallest point in nature. I will let him see therein a new abyss. I will paint for him not only the visible universe, but all that he can conceive of nature's immensity in the womb of his abridged atom. Let him lose himself in wonders as amazing in their littleness as the others in their vastness. For who will not be astonished at the fact that our body, which a little while ago was imperceptible in the universe, itself imperceptible in the bosom of the whole, is now a colossus, a world, or rather a whole, in respect of the nothingness which we cannot reach. He who regards himself in this light will be afraid of himself, and observing himself sustained in the body given him by nature between those two abysses of the infinite and nothing, will tremble at the sight of these marvels. And I think that as his curiosity changes into admiration, he will be more disposed to contemplate them in silence than to examine them with presumption. For in fact, what is man in nature? A nothing in comparison with the infinite, and all in comparison with the nothing, a mean between nothing and everything. Since he is infinitely removed from comprehending the extremes, the end of things and their beginning are hopelessly hidden from him in an impenetrable secret. He is equally incapable of seeing the nothing from which he was made, and the infinite in which he is swallowed up. And then it goes on, with further reflections about humanity in the universe as imperceptible as a nothing in comparison to the infinite, but also an infinite in comparison to the nothing of all the microscopic things in the human body. And Voltaire, in the 18th century, he talks about Leeuwenhoek in Micromégas, who invented the microscope, that now people can really see how infinitely small things can be. And of course, with the telescope, how infinitely large things are. This is such a shift away from the pre-Copernican universe. And in the 18th century, the scientific revolution is, in full swing. In the 17th century it was already there, but in Voltaire's day, all of these scientific discoveries are just shattering people's expectations of the world. Whereas before humanity was at the center of everything, people really can't say that anymore. And that is, I think, in part what inspired Voltaire's Micromégas. You see this theme over and over again in the story of humans who are super duper tiny in comparison to these giants, but then the giants are also actually pretty small on their planets, where there are even greater creatures. And then there's the vast universe, and the Earth is really tiny in this vast universe. In addition to Micromégas being a satire on European society, on French society in particular, of course, on the different philosophies of the 17th and 18th centuries, it also bears witness to the shift in thinking about humanity. So if you're interested in a fun but thought-provoking story, I highly recommend Micromégas by Voltaire. Let me know your thoughts about any of the themes explored in this story, and I hope to do more of these videos in the future. Thanks everyone. Bye now.